Hi, this is Rob Bennett with Rob from Rob Bennett's PassionSaving.com. The title of this video is "This Economic Crisis is an Opportunity in Disguise." Have you ever had the experience where something very bad happens, something traumatic happens in your life? You lose a job, or you break up with someone who you have cared about very much for a long time, or you're hospitalized, or some dramatic negative development happens in your life. And years later, you look back and things are going in a very different, positive direction. And as you think back over things, you see that this negative development actually turned out to be a very positive development, although you never would have thought to say that at the time it happened. Now, it doesn't always turn out that way. Some negative developments really just are negative developments. But this phenomenon happens often enough that I think we should stop and think about what's going on when that sort of thing does take place, when something very negative on the surface takes place in your life and it turns out to actually be sending things in a very positive direction. What I think is going on is that human beings are resistant to change, and probably for good reasons. Change is risky. Change is dangerous. So our natural inclination is to keep things going the way they are for so long as things are going more or less okay. So the sort of thing that can happen is you're in a job and it's not really challenging you, and you're not really growing in this job. You're not really having fun. And as a result, you get bored. And your work quality goes down, and then your employer is not satisfied with you, and things just generally are going in a negative way. But things aren't so bad as to make you leave the job, because the pay may be good, or you spent years in preparation for this job and you don't want to feel that that was all a waste, or maybe you have some good friends at the office, that sort of thing. And you're settled into your life. You're living in the town, and you have a routine where you drive to work and all this sort of thing, and you don't want to upset it all. So you lose your job, and it's a traumatic event. And it really is a traumatic event for 6 months or so until you find another job and you settle in at the new place. But now your skills are being put to better use, and 5 years from then, you look back and you say, this was a very positive change. I needed to change career direction. I knew it in the back of my mind, but I didn't want to let that thought in. So whenever I had thoughts that I had chosen the wrong career, I would silence them. And it was forced on me with that job loss to cope with this question, to face the problem. And now that I've solved the problem, I just wish I had done it sooner. I wish I hadn't waited for that job loss. I wish I had taken action. Now, that's what I think is going on with today's economic crisis, the economic crisis that began in September of 2008. And that has caused millions of people to lose their jobs, and that has caused millions more to be worried about their futures. That has caused millions of retirement accounts to be put in jeopardy because of the stock losses. And that has even caused political friction that we see with the Tea Party movement from the right and the Occupy Wall Street movement from the left. So people are beginning to lose confidence in our economic system, but they're even beginning to lose confidence in the ability of our political system to address our economic problems. So the economic crisis is a very serious thing, and everyone would agree it's a serious thing. There's no controversy on that. But I believe that the thing that's missing here is that we have not been serious about diagnosing the problem. We have not taken a serious look at the true cause of the economic crisis. I think we're kidding ourselves about the causes of the economic crisis. And I want to read to you just a few words from the book Irrational Exuberance by Robert Shiller. Robert Shiller is economics professor at Yale University, and it is Robert Shiller's research that is the basis for all of the investing materials at PassionSaving.com. The conventional advice is rooted in the research of Eugene Fama, economics professor at the University of Chicago. And Fama's a very smart guy, and he had many very powerful insights. But Shiller's research in 1981, showing that valuations affect long-term returns, discredits the model developed by Fama. I call it the buy and hold model. And if we all were thinking clearly, I think we would have moved on in 1981 to the Shiller model. But what happened is the insights that Shiller put forward were so powerful that I think it was very difficult, even for very smart people, to come to terms with them immediately. So we put off that effort for a few years, and then we got into this huge bull market. And once we got into the huge bull market, there really wasn't any interest in developing a new model for understanding stock investing. So it's only with the price crash and the economic crisis of 2008 that people have begun looking seriously at these questions, and people are starting to wonder: did the buy and holders really have it all figured out? Maybe they figured out a lot of it, but we're missing an important piece, and that's what I believe. So I want to read you a few words here that Robert Shiller put forward in his book, which was published in March of 2000. So it was published long before the economic crisis hit. Shiller says, if over some interval in the first decade or so of the 21st century, the U.S. stock market is going to follow an uneven course down, as well it might, back, let us say, to its levels in the mid-1990s or even lower, then individuals, foundations, college endowments, and other beneficiaries of the market are going to find themselves poorer in the aggregate by trillions of dollars. The real losses could be comparable to the total destruction of all the schools in the country, or all the farms in the country, or possibly even all the homes in the country. And those are pretty scary words. So Shiller saw it all coming long before it happened. And if Shiller saw it coming, that suggests to me that Shiller has a better understanding of what's going on than do the people who didn't see it coming. The buy and holders certainly did not see this coming. They certainly were shocked and amazed. And you can go to discussion boards where buy and holders congregate and look at the archives for how they reacted in late 2008, early 2009, and you'll see that they were shocked and amazed. But Shiller saw it coming. So that says to me that Shiller knew things that the buy and holders did not know. What did he know? Well, it's very, very, very simple. What I'm going to tell you is so simple. It's almost insulting. But that I would say it, but I have to say it because no one else is talking about this. We had a commission. There was a federal commission charged with looking at the cause of the economic crisis, and they didn't talk about what I'm going to talk about now, what I'm talking about in this video. You can go back to, everyone knows that stocks were overvalued in the late 1990s. Everyone knows that. But very few take the trouble to determine the dollar amount by which they were overvalued. And I believe that's because of their belief in the buy and hold model. But it's a very valuable exercise, a very revealing exercise to calculate the dollar amount. How much were stocks overvalued at the top of the bull market, January of 2000? It's a mathematical exercise. The data is available on the internet. The answer is stocks were overpriced at that time by $12 trillion. Now, it's almost impossible for the human mind to even understand how big a number that is. To give you some idea, this annual budget deficit that people talk about all the time, it's usually something in the neighborhood of $1 trillion. And the worst we've ever seen is something in the neighborhood of $2 trillion. But the overvaluation was $12 trillion. If you add up all the annual budget deficits we've had going back in the history of the nation, going back to the time of George Washington, it's about $15 trillion. So the losses, if we were to lose the amount of money that stocks were overvalued by in January 2000, we would be losing roughly the same amount of money, roughly the amount of money that is the entire federal debt, all the federal deficits, annual federal deficits accumulated altogether. That's the sort of number we're talking about here. And research shows that that's just what happens. That if stocks are overpriced by 12 trillion in 2000, then over the next 10 or so years, we are going to lose $12 trillion of spending power from our consumer economy. Well, what happens when $12 trillion of spending power disappears from the economy? Businesses fail. Thousands and thousands and thousands of businesses fail, and millions of workers are laid off. And we are in an economic crisis. Now, this sounds scary, depressing. We caused the economic crisis by letting stock prices to get so out of hand. But it's not. On a deep level, it shouldn't be scaring or depressing at all. It's very, 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 very good news. Why? Because another thing you can look up on the internet, you can look up, Shiller has the data at his website. You can look up, we have had 4 economic crises in the United States going back to 1870, which is as far back as we have records of stock prices. Every single one of those economic crises started with dramatically overpriced stocks. And there's never been a time that we had dramatically overpriced stocks that we didn't have an economic crisis. The correlation is perfect. The one thing causes the other. We allow stocks to get overpriced. The overvaluation disappears, and when it disappears, we lose money from our consumer economy, and we have an economic crisis. The good news here is that we now know how to stop economic crises. We have to stop overvaluation. And the shift from buy and hold to valuation-informed indexing, the Shiller model, would do just that. So we now know how not only to reduce the risk of stock investing by 70%, I have research that shows that that's what would happen if we would publicize Shiller's insights, but also to earn higher returns and also to smooth out the functioning of the economy, to eliminate these economic crises. Very, very powerful stuff. Why aren't we dealing with it? It's because it is so positive and so big that it scares us, because we're changing everything in our society when we make this change. But it's going to be a very, very, very powerful, positive change. So my argument is this economic crisis is a blessing in disguise. Please go into the site and read more. There's lots of materials on this topic. Take care.